The first 2.5 decades of the Tampa Bay Rays franchise have sure been an interesting one, and things in the baseball world could have looked a lot different if things didn't play out the way they did back in the 90s. The San Francisco Giants were actually a team that very well could have moved to Tampa Bay, with owner Bob Lurie getting 9 votes instead of the 10 he needed for the sell to go through. The Twins, Rangers, White Sox, and Mariners all contemplated moving their franchise to Tampa Bay as well before deciding to stay put. This all led to Tampa Bay getting an expansion team, now known as the Rays. Skip through the awful years, the good years, the upsets, everything, and Tampa Bay may not have a baseball team for too much longer. On March 9, 1995, Major League Baseball owners agreed to add 2 new expansion teams to baseball, a team in Arizona and a team set to play in Tampa Bay, Florida, or St. Petersburg, Florida to be more accurate. The Rays' first ever game took place 3 years later on March 21, 1998 in front of a crowd of over 45,000 people at Tropicana Field, and off their franchise officially began. Looking back, let's just say it's been a very eventful last couple of decades for baseball in the Tampa Bay area. The Devil Rays years were just straight up awful. From 1998 through 2007, the most amount of wins the Rays got in a single season was 70, usually finishing their win column in the 60s and even having it go down as far as 55 in 2002. They were at the bottom of the barrel as far as attendance went, and they were virtually the bottom feeders for teams like the Red Sox, Yankees, or whoever was remotely decent at the time. It got so bad to the point where owner Stuart Sternberg had enough and shook some things up before the 2006 season, firing most of his front office and bringing in Andrew Friedman to be the executive vice president of baseball operations, while also hiring Joe Maddon to be the team's manager. The Rays continued to be awful, winning just 61 in 66 games in 2006 and 2007 respectively, and before the 2008 season, the Rays rebranded, taking away the devil in their name, and immediately turned into a World Series team, literally. Well, maybe not that literally. There was a ton of behind-the-scenes action going on leading up to 2008. Little did anyone really know, the Tampa Bay Rays became arguably the smartest team in sports. Led by hitters like Carl Crawford, Evan Longoria, Carlos Pena, Ben Zobrist, and pitchers like James Shields, Matt Garza, and David Price, the Tampa Bay Rays won 97 games, winning the American League East Division, their first division title, first postseason appearance, and would go on to take down the Chicago White Sox in the ALDS in 4 games, followed by a 7-game series victory over the defending World Series champion Boston Red Sox, going all the way to the World Series where they would fall in 5 to the Phillies, but they weren't a one-time wonder. The 2019 regressed a ton, but 2010 arrived and the Rays were back to winning, and have never really truly looked back. From 2010 to 2013, the Rays won at least 90 games in those 4 seasons, and after a rough 4 years of missing the postseason, especially with a 68-win 2016, the Rays have been a winner every single year. In 2018, 2019, and 2021, the Rays have won at least 90 games in those 3 years, won their division in the shortened 2020 season, and made it to the World Series, while going on to win their division again in 2021 by winning 100 games. After not making the postseason for the first 10 seasons of their franchise, the Rays have made it 7 times since the start of 2008. They've continued to have one of the best front offices in all of baseball, a group of people who have continuously put out a contender when having one of, and in some cases, the lowest payrolls in all of baseball. They're a fascinating team that never shies away from thinking outside of the box to get an advantage, and it's fun to watch. Although many people would agree with that, the stands at Tropicana Field unfortunately don't, and never have. The Rays have played in front of thousands upon thousands of empty seats for their entire existence, and winning hasn't ever changed that. Now, yes, there are a couple of valid reasons for this. For one, the ballpark is in a terrible and inconvenient location. Most people who live in the Tampa Bay area who like baseball are fans of other teams, and the ballpark itself is ugly. TV ratings were up across the board this past year for the Rays. As much as it's fun to make jokes about how they have no fans, that just simply isn't true. Do they have nearly as many fans as, say, the Dodgers or, I don't know, the Red Sox? No, of course not, but they're still out there and growing by the year. With that being said, the team cannot continue to play in an empty ballpark. Everyone knows that. So the easy solution to that would be to move the team to a better location that's actually in Tampa Bay and not St. Pete, right? Apparently it isn't that simple. A few years ago, with all these issues in mind, owner Stuart Sternberg came up with an idea. His grand plan wasn't to leave Tampa Bay altogether and move the team to another city, but it wasn't to stay altogether either. What he and his team came up with was to become a quote-unquote sister city team where the Rays would play half of their home games in Tampa Bay and the other half all the way up in Montreal, Canada. I did say that the Rays never failed to think outside of the box. As far as the fans went, they were not happy, as Sternberg's idea isn't very popular among them. But Sternberg didn't seem to care and really pushed for this plan to work, with Rays officials going as far as to say that it was their only option and dismissed any chance of getting a new full-time home in the Tampa Bay area. The team has also strongly hinted that if a split season plan between Tampa and Montreal didn't happen, leaving Tampa Bay would be a more likely scenario than remaining where they are now full-time. Getting a new ballpark for the Rays has never been easy, and it's a process that has been ongoing since back in 2008, when plans for a park on the St. Petersburg waterfront were cancelled, followed by another attempt for a new park in 2012, one that was going to be in a much more ideal place that many people wouldn't have a hard time getting to, which ended up being cancelled by 2015. In January 2016, the city of St. Petersburg allowed the team to explore options for their new ballpark, and they came up with yet another option, this time in July of 2018. Announcing they would vacate Tropicana Field and relocate to the proposed Ybor Stadium in Tampa before the start of the 2023 season. But not even 6 months later, that same year in December, that project was canceled. You can probably understand why Sternberg finally just came up with some extreme idea that nobody would ever think to do, because nothing else seemed to work. But as far as his mission to split games between the two cities, Major League Baseball has officially rejected it, and let's be honest, it wasn't the best idea from the start. Rays fans hated it, and one of the biggest mistakes that Sternberg did was announce that they would promote the plan during the 2021 postseason by displaying a Montreal-Tampa themed sign in the outfield. Fans were enraged. And as someone who was at both Rays postseason games in 2021, I heard plenty of fans talking in disgust about Sternberg's idea and his plan to promote it during the playoffs. There was even a sign brought to the game in protest of the team owner, with it reading, "Sharing a team is like sharing a wife." Wrong. As for Sternberg, he admitted the idea to promote it during October was a bad one, but continued to be all in on the sister city plan until he no longer couldn't, and did not fail to bring up his disappointment in it being rejected, saying that the news was flat out deflating and how he felt like a rug was just pulled from underneath them. He'd then go on to have a press conference speaking on the cancellation, and said something that really stood out to me. He made it clear that he had no plans to move or sell the team and wants to keep the Rays in Tampa Bay, but did go on to say that the Rays will be examining attendance this year before determining future plans. That's an interesting one. It's almost like a plea to get Rays fans to start showing up more consistently during the regular season, or else he'll really start looking for another home for the Rays. You know that nothing is really going to change. Unless something miraculous takes place, the Rays will still be at the bottom in attendance in 2022. As far as right now, we only know one thing for sure, and that's the fact that the Rays lease at Tropicana Field expires after the 2027 season, meaning there isn't much more time. Nothing is set in stone. Maybe the Rays will stay in St. Pete or actually move to Tampa Bay, but the longer this continues to drag out, the bigger the possibility is that the Rays will be moving to another city. Tampa Bay, Montreal, Nashville perhaps? Let me know where you think the Rays will be playing on opening day in 2028, and thank you for watching.